Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the tomb. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, and said to them, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him." Then Peter and the other disciple set out and went toward the tomb. The two were running together. But the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent down to look in and saw the linen wrappings lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came following him and went into the tomb. He saw the linen wrappings lying there and the cloth that had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. Then the other disciple, who reached the tomb first, also went in, and he saw and believed. For as yet they did not understand the scripture that he must rise from the dead. Then the disciples returned to their homes. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb. And she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head and the other at the feet. They said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." When she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there. But she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for?" Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Do not hold on to me, because I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them that he had said these things to her. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Earlier this week, an older couple received a phone call from their son who lives far away. The son said he was sorry that he wouldn't be able to come to visit for Easter after all. But the grandkids say hello. They assured him that they understood. But when they hung up the phone, they didn't dare look at each other. Earlier this week, a woman received notice that she had to be let go from her job. "So sorry," her supervisor said. She cleaned out her desk, packed away her hopes for getting ahead, and wondered what she would tell her kids. Earlier this week, someone received a terminal cancer diagnosis from a physician. Someone else heard the words, "I have never loved you." Earlier this week, hope was crucified, and the darkness can be overwhelming. I don't think that we're ever ready to encounter Easter until we've spent time in the dark and experienced the disappearance of our hope. And that's right where we find Mary in tonight's gospel. Her hope is gone. She's in intense grief. The tears won't stop. And on top of that, the body of the one she is grieving for is now gone. Have you ever experienced such a time of grief? Have you ever been devoid of hope? Tonight we began our worship by recalling that there is light in the darkness. And this is what we've been enacting and speaking all night already. The biblical stories that we've been telling and hearing tonight are really the story of our name. It's the story of what it means to be God's holy people. It's kind of the long version of what it means to be a Christian. And did you notice that in that gospel story I just read, Easter happens through the speaking of a name. Easter began the moment that the gardener said, "Mary," and she knew who he was. That's where the miracle happened and goes on happening, not in the tomb, but in that encounter with the living Lord. In the end, it's the only evidence that we have to offer those who ask us how we can possibly believe. Because we live, that's why. Because we have found to our surprise that we're not alone. Because we've had an encounter with this risen one, and we never know where or when our risen Lord will turn up next. Here's one thing that Mary helps us to remember. Never get so focused on the empty tomb that you forget to speak to the gardener. Tonight, hear the Lord speak your name. This is the light in our darkness. This is where Easter happens for us. Just as Jesus called Mary by name, hear him call your name and let Easter happen to you. Beloved Steve, child of God. Beloved Alora, child of God. Beloved Diane, child of God. Beloved Charlie, child of God. Since you've been buried with him by baptism into death, you will certainly be united with him in a resurrection like his. This is the good news. And it doesn't end here. As the Lord has something more to say. For just like with Mary, now that you've been called by name, you are sent also to proclaim what you have seen and heard to others, to other disciples all around the world. And we don't have to look hard to see that our world is hungry for such good news. From terrorist shooting and then burning concertgoers in Russia, to massive bombings in Gaza, from bridges falling in Baltimore to a massive fish kill in Iowa, from racial unrest to the ongoing mass migration of refugees, from fear-mongering political candidates to devastating storms and fires as our planet warms, from losing loved ones to broken relationships, hope can be so hard to come by. And a lack of hope can be like the stone that sealed off Jesus' tomb. Pastor John Beatty composed a poem that he calls "Rolled Back," about that stone. And I find it really kind of captures Mary's journey from despair to joy when she encounters her risen Lord. Cold, dark rock, immovable, casting its shadow over the garden, entombing life within its silent, dark chambers. We know only too well those stones that weigh heavy on our hearts: grief, death, illness, loneliness, sin, shame, guilt, addiction, depression, broken relationships. The landscape of our lives is littered with these rocks, boulders that block our path and keep us from life. Like the women that first Easter morning, we might even wonder, who will roll the stone away? It is too big, too imposing for our limited strength alone to move. Our energy and thoughts become consumed by its presence, and we lose the purpose of our journey. It becomes the stone around our neck that drowns us, suffocating life and hope. But when we finally arrive at the place of the stone, we discover that the stone has been rolled back, not removed, but moved just enough to allow the power of the resurrected Christ to be set free in the world. God has the power to roll the stone away. In God's hands, the stone that entraps us and seals out life can become the foundation for new life in God's hands. The boulder that causes us to stumble can become the pavement for a new path. In God's hands, the rock that casts its shadow over us can be refined and polished to become a gem that reflects the light of God's love and power to all who see it. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. God has rolled away the stone. Life, love, grace, power, and light break forth into the darkness of our lives. The light in the midst of our darkness is our Easter proclamation. Jesus not only calls Mary by name, he also tells her to go and tell. Tonight, we too are called by name and then sent forth with our hope restored to share the good news that he is risen. So we'll go back into our hurting world, ravaged by conflict and shadowed by fear. Yet because Christ has been raised, that world is also already new, sparkling with divine possibilities. Tonight, we've retold the story of who we are. Tonight, we're joined anew to the death and resurrection of Christ through our baptismal waters. Tonight, we've been called by name and sent to proclaim that our Lord lives. And that's a beacon of light that can penetrate even the deepest darkness of this world. Amen.